I've restrained a passenger on board a flight. This is an experience of mine. I wouldn't say it's a story, but it's an experience. It's something that I was participating in. I was on the flight and it happened to me. I would refrain from using the term story as I really don't like it. I would like to say experience because my personal experience can be something that you can learn and you can benefit from. And perhaps you will know how we are doing the restraining process on board the flight. So make sure to stay tuned until the last minute of this video to hear this personal experience of mine, and perhaps tomorrow when you will be a flight attendant you will know exactly what to do and you will remember my experience in this video. My name is Julia George and I used to fly for Qatar Airways for 10 years, out of which 5 years I have spent it in the leadership role. It was a flight from Atlanta to Doha. I still remember that the flying time was 13 hours and 45 minutes. And on those long flights, we have 4 services that we're conducting. On the way back from Atlanta to Doha, we're doing lunch dinner service. It's the first main service. Then we're doing something called movie snacks. We used to do something called movie snacks. Then there comes the sandwich service, in which we're serving sandwich, some fruits, some light snacks as well, and another main meal service. Usually it's a brunch service before landing into Doha. So we've done all the services. We are finished with the rest. We have rest, crew in-flight rest, which is a legal requirement to the flights to USA and out of USA. So we were done with all the services. I still remember when I was at that time when this happened, when we restrained the passenger, I was working as a supervisor, cabin senior in economy class, and my work style until the end as a cabin service director was always preparing myself and conducting the service or influencing the crew members to conduct the service at least 20 to 30 minutes earlier than what is required. Why I was doing that? For the simple reason I was always mentally preparing myself for things that might happen right when you don't expect them, and in this case this actually happened. This actually was my state confirmation that what I'm doing right. I always, and the crew, for those of you that flown with me and would watch this video, you will all know that I was always correcting the timings. Perhaps when I was a senior, when the cabin service director will give me the timings, I would always correct the timings and I would say that I want the service to be started a little earlier and I want to finish with the service a little earlier because a medical case can happen, passenger might faint. I want to have those 30 minutes to play with before the actual descending to start, so I can have some time to anticipate duty free, to speak to my frequent flyers, to gather the informations from my crew members, so on and so forth. So this was exactly what was happening. I did the service and we were finished. I did the last service before landing and we were done half an hour early before the actual descent, before the public announcement of the captain to be happening. As I was having some time before the preparations for landing start, I said I'm going to go to the front, I'm going to greet my CSD. On the way, I will speak to some frequent flyers with some passengers. Perhaps if I grab the attention of other business class passengers, I will again offer a duty-free. I was doing the duty-free rounds quite often on the long flights. So I said I'm going to finish with all this and then I'm going to nicely come back to the aft and then later on resume with the preparations before landing. So as I went to the front, I spoke to the CSD, went to the lavatory, washed my hands, freshened up, and I came outside. I could hear that the interphone at the L1 station rang, and the crew said to me, Julia, the crew needs you at the back right away. I observed that there was an alarm over here, which straight away in my mind triggered me. I still remember the feeling. I'm getting goosebumps. I said, prepare for the worst. You never know what's gonna be happening. I run to the back. It was a Boeing 777 aircraft, 300, the longer version, and it takes like 15 seconds for me to reach at the back, 10 seconds. I was very fast. And I see that one of the crew members, she was from South America, she was sitting on the jump seat and she was bleeding from her eyes. I'm not kidding you. The crew was sitting on the jump seat and she was bleeding from her eyes. On the other hand, I'm just observing and I'm seeing the 2 male cabin crew that were with me at the aft. They are holding a passenger who is in an unexplainable stage of mind. And I was shocked. I must say that a second observing that situation was completely shocking for me because I left everything completely normal. I came back, two male crew are holding a passenger. The passenger is into some kind of neurotic or psychotic situation, which I cannot explain to him, as his eyes were unable to be seen. This entire thing of the eye inside was white. His eyes were somewhere up. And were not being able to be seen. He was extremely aggressive, and the crew was bleeding from her eyes. On the other hand, sitting on the jump seat, and there was an unexplainable tension over there, an unexplainable fear. And on the other hand, you would understand that over here we have passengers that are going to the toilet, coming up, they want to know what's happening. And now there is this entire scenario that me as a supervisor I have to deal with. I had to quickly gather information as what has happened in those 2 minutes, literally, while I was gone. And the crew that was there and was standing there, the two male crew, were holding the passenger, were holding his hands, and were holding his head, as he was extremely aggressive. And I believe that he wasn't even aware of what he was doing. So they told me that that passenger came out from the lavatory and took the handle of the door in flight and actually tried to pull the door and open the door in flight. The crew immediately stopped the passenger, but when the passenger turned, that was the lady who was bleeding from her eyes. But when he turned, he actually stuck his nails into her eyes, and he hurt her so much that she started bleeding from her eyes. So I quickly, in this scenario, hand over her medical condition to another cabin crew. I've called for a backup assistance, everyone from the crew members that were there, and I've sent the crew member to call for the crew for the front. A very important thing over here, I have sent the crew to inform the captain what is happening at the back, what we are dealing in at the moment, because the captain must inform the ground. We were half an hour before we start landing. We might get a shortcut even. Actually, we also got a shortcut, I remember, for landing. And it was a whole huge tension. We were all dealing with. The team, I must say, was brilliant. But then we had another scenario in which we had the passengers being very curious. And now there was a thing that I have to deal with this, and I have to adopt a leadership style which is not diplomatic, which is not a laissez-faire, but an autocratic leadership style. And I have to literally tell every passenger to be seated, put their phones down, and actually assign a crew member to have a look on those passengers, not to take their phones out, because over here we are dealing with the situations that with the situation that we were not trained for. Why I'm saying that we were not trained for that situation? In a normal scenario, in the security training, aviation security training that we're getting, we are taught about 4 types of disruptive scenario of an unruly passenger, and those 4 types are actually 4 levels. So we have the unruly passenger, level 1. We have the unruly passenger with the disruptive behavior, level 2. We have the disruptive behavior that continues, that is interfering the duties of the cabin crew, which is level 3. And we have level 4, which is the actual breach of the flight deck compartment, the flight deck door. But over there, none of there is written actually what about the door of the aircraft, which level is that? So to me there was no doubt that it's level 4. I've picked up the interphone myself. I've called the captain. I said, we have a passenger who is not into a I observed not in a normal mental stage. I told to the captain that we cannot see the eyes of the passenger. His eyes are rolled. I said he tried to open the R5 door on the right hand side as he was going out from the toilet. He hurt the cabin crew. He stuck the fingers into the eyes. The cabin crew is bleeding at the moment. We must restrain this passenger. And I still remember that captain, because why I'm smiling, I'm not smiling because of all this situation, but I'm smiling because the captain said, Julia, you do the needful, whatever you think you should be doing. This was a kind of a trust that we built in that flight. More or less, I would say the easier circumstance was that we were coming back from Atlanta to Doha. We had kind of a bond, and I would say kind of a shared work style with the captain. When the CSD was on rest, I was the one who was informing the captain of what was going on in the flight. He was trusting my leadership skills so much that his sentence was just do the needful. We actually had to restrain the passenger. Now the thing was that that passenger required a constant hold, as he was spitting all over. He actually bited the crew right over here. The crew that was holding the passenger, he managed to grab him on the arm. He bited the crew member that was holding him, and you know what? That crew member actually bleeded from here. His shirt was actually full of blood. This was a situation that was, as I said before, it was not something we were trained for. It was something that was, it was a situation that was basically testing our skills, how strong we are, how can we deal with these situations. It required a fast thinking, but believe it or not, it required even a faster acting. Now, on a full flight like Atlanta to Doha, with literally no seat available in the cabin, the capacity of the aircraft was 293 seats, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm mistaken, please correct me, but I do believe still that the 300 series Boeing were one of the 300 series Boeings were still 42 in business class, 293 in economy, with literally all seats were occupied. Now I had to think where I'm going to be seating this passenger and what I'm going to be doing with this passenger, as we have restrained him, and we are using a force that is proportional of the force he is offering as a resistance. Nothing more than that. Everything was in the frame of to neutralize the power that he is using to overcome the resistance. That is something that I'm very particular about, and I'm very careful at, as I'm a police academy graduated student, and to me the restraining courses that we were doing every year were something favorite to me, something that I was putting my entire effort, knowledge to learn more, to improve more, and to know how to deal with it. I think that was it actually crucial in this situation. So I had to move from the last few rows, few passengers to be seated on other seats, as on those rows I had few families living, and I had to ensure that I have something called able body passengers. Why I'm saying able body passengers? Those are usually the passengers that the airlines or the check-in counter are getting the seats on the exit rows in the airline where I was working for, and most of the airlines actually do that. And those people are actually the ones who are going to be assisting the cabin crew in case of an emergency. This was the type of emergency. I've went to those able body passengers that I observed myself. They were traveling alone. That was one of the conditions to somebody to be an able-bodied passenger to be considered. He should travel alone, so we will know that this person will be helping the crew members. They perhaps can have a military or a police background. So I was looking on the flight for people like that. I found them. I found 3 of them. I have seated the passenger who was restrained on the last row, and I have put 3 able-bodied passengers in front. I have managed to do that in less than 2 minutes, I believe. I've given so autocratic and clear instructions to the passengers that their way of looking and viewing will be only up front. What is dealing at the back, we're fully trained to do it. We're there for the safety of their comfort, and I need their full assistance to just focus on their in-flight entertainment and just keep their headphones, enjoy the rest of the flight, and do not worry. And believe it or not, guys, I succeed in doing that. We have the passengers seated down at the last row. I've gotten the 2 passengers up front, 3 passengers up front. I've put another crew member next to the passenger who was holding the passenger, because we had to ensure that the passenger has a seat belt, the hands are tightened up. We are holding him in order to prevent him to continue injuring other passengers or other crew members, and we have safely landed into Doha, where After landing into Doha, the passenger was handed over to the authorities, and we went to give our statements in the police of what was happening. I've wrote the cabin safety report. That is something that whatever any safety issues is happening on board the aircraft, we are writing that CSR, so-called, or a cabin safety report, in which we are clearly explaining what has happened, the actions that we have taken, how they have reflected, the necessarily voyage report when it comes to the in-flight service, how that was reflecting the in-flight service, and everything went just perfect. Why I'm saying everything went just perfect? We do not know what has happened to the passenger, obviously, but from a cabin crew point of view, the cabin safety department actually did said to me, and I've received an email, that we have done the duties and responsibilities as per the standard operating procedures, as that's why we are trained for. I wouldn't say that we got clapped hands, because that is not something that they are clapping hands on, but that was a part of a great learning experience in which we got a confirmation that what we have done, we've done it right. We have definitely prevented condition from worsening, and as you know that in flight the cabin door is impossible to be opened. The aircraft is pressurized to a point that no force can open the cabin door from inside. I'm saying a human force cannot open the cabin door from inside. But definitely we did not allow any passenger to be injured. We had 2 crew members being injured. When it comes to the restraining, the technique to restrain that passenger was not the technique that we used as per the book, but we definitely used the right technique when it comes to neutralizing the power that the passenger was offering, as he become significantly unruly, and I believe in that moment he wasn't even aware of what he was doing. He was unbelievably aggressive. He was a real threat on the flight, threat towards the passengers, threat towards the safety mainly of the aircraft, trying to open that door. He was a threat towards the crew members, and we did a fantastic job when it comes to neutralizing that threat down, and to ensure that he is complying with the safety instructions, in terms of not complying to the safety instructions, but in terms of neutralizing the power that he's using in order to hurt the crew members, the passengers, and to, as I said, threat the safety. Thank you for watching this video and this experience of mine about how I restrained the passenger on board the flight. I would like to say huge thanks to all the crew members that were on that flight. Some of the crew members I'm still in touch with, and some of the crew members on that flight are actually no longer crew members, just as me, but we share that story together, and we will be united together for the rest of our lives in that story. That is definitely part of a great learning experience. That is a story that actually, I would not say story, that is actually an experience that has straightened up our skills to a point that it's not good to remember, but when I remember, I keep on saying to myself that I did it. I'm proud of what I have done. We've prevented so much, as I have said, and at the end of the day, we did our part and our fair share of the job. As I said, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to click subscribe and to hit the notification button, because I'm going to be releasing so many personal experiences of mine when it comes to sharing experience, my flying experience with Qatar Airways. Bye bye and have a nice day.